Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the powerful and fascinating story of USS Ranger, CV-61, a ship that may not be as famous as some nuclear-powered giants, but one that quietly carried immense responsibility during one of the most intense periods of the Cold War. USS Ranger was not just an aircraft carrier, it was a floating airbase, a symbol of American naval power, and a frontline participant in conflicts that shaped modern history. USS Ranger was commissioned on August 10, 1957, at the height of Cold War tensions. Built by Newport News Shipbuilding, Ranger was the first of a new generation of supercarriers designed after World War II. Unlike earlier carriers that evolved from wartime designs, Ranger was created specifically for jet aircraft operations. Everything about her size, deck layout, and internal systems reflected a new era of naval aviation. She stretched over 1,000 feet in length, displaced more than 80,000 tons when fully loaded, and could carry over 70 aircraft, making her one of the most formidable warships of her time. Powered by conventional steam turbines rather than nuclear reactors, USS Ranger relied on 8 boilers that generated massive horsepower, allowing her to reach speeds exceeding 33 knots. This speed was critical, not just for maneuvering in combat, but also for launching aircraft efficiently. Wind over the deck was essential for jet operations, and Ranger was built to provide exactly that. Her angled flight deck, steam catapults, and advanced arresting gear represented cutting-edge technology in the 1950s. From the moment she entered service, USS Ranger became a central player in U.S. naval strategy. During the Cold War, aircraft carriers were more than weapons, they were political tools. Their presence near contested regions sent clear messages without firing a single shot. Ranger spent much of her early career in the Pacific Fleet, where tensions with the Soviet Union and China were constantly simmering. In the early 1960s, USS Ranger played a key role during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Although she was stationed primarily in the Pacific, her readiness and capability were part of the global naval posture that pressured the Soviet Union. This period demonstrated how carriers like Ranger were essential to rapid response and global power projection. However, it was the Vietnam War that truly defined USS Ranger's combat legacy. Beginning in the mid-1960s, Ranger conducted multiple deployments to the Gulf of Tonkin, where she launched thousands of combat sorties against North Vietnamese targets. Day and night, her flight deck remained active as pilots took off to strike enemy infrastructure, supply lines, and air defenses. These missions were extremely dangerous. North Vietnam was heavily defended with anti-aircraft guns and surface-to-air missiles supplied by the Soviet Union. Ranger's air wing flew some of the most intense operations of the war, including bombing campaigns such as Operation Rolling Thunder. The carrier became a lifeline for air power, sustaining operations for months at sea without returning to port. Life aboard USS Ranger during wartime was exhausting and stressful. Sailors worked long shifts under extreme heat, noise, and pressure. Despite the dangers, morale remained strong, driven by discipline, camaraderie, and a shared sense of purpose. During one Vietnam deployment, USS Ranger earned the nickname, Top Gun Carrier, after hosting the Navy Fighter Weapons School's aircraft and instructors. This association further enhanced her reputation as a carrier focused on air combat excellence. The lessons learned aboard Ranger helped shape naval aviation tactics that are still studied today. After Vietnam, USS Ranger continued to serve as a key asset during a changing global landscape. The 1970s and 1980s were marked by regional conflicts, rising tensions in the Middle East, and continued rivalry with the Soviet Union. Ranger frequently deployed to the Indian Ocean and Western Pacific, responding to crises and maintaining a visible U.S. presence. One of the most significant moments in Ranger's later career came in 1991 during Operation Desert Storm. As part of the U.S.-led coalition against Iraq, USS Ranger launched airstrikes against Iraqi targets following the invasion of Kuwait. Operating in the confined and dangerous waters of the Persian Gulf, Ranger's aircraft played a vital role in suppressing enemy defenses and supporting ground operations. Once again, the carrier proved that even non-nuclear ships could deliver devastating and precise air power. Technologically, USS Ranger underwent several upgrades throughout her service life. Radar systems, communication equipment, and electronic warfare capabilities were modernized to keep pace with evolving threats. Despite these improvements, the reality of aging machinery and high maintenance costs began to catch up with her. By the early 1990s, the U.S. Navy was shifting its focus toward nuclear-powered carriers, which offered longer endurance and lower long-term operating costs. USS Ranger was decommissioned on July 10, 1993, after 36 years of service. Her retirement marked the end of an era. She was the last conventionally powered supercarrier to serve in the U.S. Navy, a distinction that underscored her historical importance. For many sailors who served aboard her, the decommissioning was an emotional moment, as Ranger had been their home, workplace, and protector at sea. After decommissioning, there were numerous proposals to preserve USS Ranger as a museum ship. Many veterans and historians believed she deserved a permanent place where future generations could learn about naval aviation and Cold War history. Unfortunately, despite strong public interest, funding and logistical challenges made preservation difficult. Over time, the ship deteriorated while awaiting a final decision. In 2015, the U.S. Navy announced that USS Ranger would be sold for scrapping. This decision sparked disappointment among veterans and naval enthusiasts worldwide. The carrier was eventually towed to a ship-breaking yard, bringing an end to her physical existence. While the steel and machinery were dismantled, her legacy could not be erased. USS Ranger's true impact lies not in what remains today, but in what she represented. She stood at the crossroads of history, bridging the gap between World War II-era carriers and modern nuclear-powered giants. She served during some of the most critical moments of the Cold War, carried brave pilots into combat, and projected American power across the globe for more than 3 decades. The story of USS Ranger is also the story of the thousands of sailors who lived and worked aboard her. Their sacrifices, discipline, and professionalism kept the ship operational through storms, combat, and long deployments far from home. For them, Ranger was more than steel and machinery, she was a symbol of duty and resilience. Even though USS Ranger no longer sails the oceans, her name lives on in naval history. She proved that conventional carriers could remain effective in the jet age and that innovation did not always require nuclear power. Her service helped shape doctrines, tactics, and strategies that continued to influence modern naval warfare. As we look back on USS Ranger CV-61, we're reminded that history is not only written by the most famous ships or the newest technology, but also by those that quietly and consistently did their job. Ranger stood watch during uncertain times, answered the call when needed, and fulfilled her mission with distinction. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into naval history and the legacy of USS Ranger, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the stories that shaped our world.